What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Slaw Sports Show. I'm your host, as always, Cole Noble, aka Slaw, back here at 10 o'clock on a Friday here for this week's episode of the Slaw Sports Show. And last week we had Myles Garrett join the show as our special guest last week. And this week we're bringing back a familiar face. We got Matt Laguzza going to rejoin the show, host of the From the Bench podcast. So he's going to be joining the show today, and for today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the entire NFL schedule and just give our predictions of how we think the NFL season is going to go and what the records, our record predictions for pretty much all 32 teams, ranking them in their division, and pretty much just establishing what the playoff picture is going to look like in our opinions. So let me go ahead and here welcome in Matt Laguzza. So Matt, what's going on, my man?
Nothing much. Doing well. How are you?
I'm good, and it's great to have you back on the show. You're doing a lot of great stuff yourself. You got the blog started up, and then the show is just continuing to produce episodes just like we are over here on the Slaw Sports Show, and you guys are doing a lot of awesome stuff over there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, end of the school year. It gets a little difficult, especially when you've got two hosts at two different schools. Communication can be a little difficult, but now that we're both back, getting ready to go, starting to get some big things and hopefully get things rolling over there.
Yeah, so Matt, before we get started talking about this NFL schedule and talking about some football stuff, first and foremost, I want to give my sincere condolences for your New York Knicks. Just a moment of silence.
Yeah. Trae Young, he's a good player. I hate him. I hate him a lot. But I really can't be upset because, I didn't even think we were going to come close to the playoffs. And the fact that we were the 4 seed, we were able to get a win in the playoffs at home in front of the home fans and everything. It's amazing. And, just have a big off season. Dame or Kawhi, come to New York. We need you. And come back strong next year. We want the rematch.
Yeah, and see what superstar the New York Knicks are going to land this offseason, because this year made a huge push in general, like you said, just getting back into the playoffs, getting fans back in the seats in MSG, getting some playoff basketball for the New York Knicks fans, and just see what superstars are going to be that lands in New York this offseason, whether it's Damian Lillard, who they already reached out to, Kawhi Leonard, if he wants to leave LA, Zion Williamson, if he wants to leave the New Orleans Pelicans.
Bring back the Duke boys.
Yeah, bring the gang back together. So that was a great series, and so far we've had a lot of great series, and even especially last night, Devin Booker taking down LeBron James in the first round for the first time ever in LeBron James's career. That one was a treat to watch, and of course tomorrow my Milwaukee Bucks take on the Brooklyn Nets in the Big Three in Game 1 of the second round. I'm excited about that one. That's going to be a great series to watch, in my opinion. But Matt, today we're going to be talking football and talking about the NFL. And both of us went through the entire 272, I believe, game schedule, every single game of the entire regular season, and pretty much predicted who we think is going to win each game in order to give us some records and give us, division rankings, playoff picture set up, who's the seeding orders, and also who's going to end up getting the first overall pick in the NFL draft in our opinions. So let's go ahead and, let's go ahead and kick things off with the NFC North. Because just a quick disclaimer we're going to throw out there, the two biggest names in, the NFL world right now and throughout the entire offseason has been Julio Jones and Aaron Rodgers. And, we both came to a consensus with Aaron Rodgers that we're just going to predict that he stays. Predict that he ends up showing up to training camp and starts week 1 as a Green Bay Packer and plays another full season. So just go ahead and disclaimer that we have Aaron Rodgers staying. And for Julio Jones, what are your thoughts on Julio Jones? Just thinking about the season predictions and how you projected this season upcoming.
Well, I'll tell you two things for sure. He's out of Atlanta, and he is not going to the Cowboys. So that we know for sure. But no, he's definitely out, and he's one of the most coveted wide receivers in the NFL. Top 5 in the game, no question about it. And any team's going to be happy to have him. Now, in my opinion, I think the three best suitors for him right now would be San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks, and the Tennessee Titans. Now, out of those teams, the Tennessee Titans are the most desperate for a wide receiver. A.J. Brown doing the recruiting, say he'd give up number 11. That would be the perfect place for him. Because right now, we'll get into this later, obviously, when we talk about it, but I don't have the Titans winning their division. I have the Colts coming out on top. If they get Julio Jones, that's a completely different story because they lost so much of their passing game. They really only have A.J. Brown left. So Julio Jones is going to be a top priority, and they got to throw everything they got at him.
Yeah, so when I did my projections, same as you, I have Julio not with the Atlanta Falcons, and that's pretty much a given that everyone really knows is that he's not going to be in Atlanta. But I was torn of where I think Julio was going to go because he can go anywhere. All the teams. I'm pretty sure the only one I've heard of that's out of the running is the Rams in the entire NFL, and that makes sense given their pick situation the next 2 to 3 years. Just not having first round picks. They don't want to give up any second and thirds, obviously, without first. So any team still up for the table. Patriots, they mentioned in there as well. But definitely 49ers, Titans, Ravens even as well.
Ravens, yeah.
Could be in the market. So it's difficult, to project where I think Julio Jones is going to go. But I would say definitely San Francisco and Tennessee were my top 2, in my opinion, of where I could see those two going. And, I'm just projected both of them to potentially have Julio Jones. That hopefully will make some sense when we get to it. But like I said, let's go ahead and start off with the NFC North. And like I said, we're projecting Aaron Rodgers stays. So based on that statement, the Green Bay Packers pretty much look like the favorites to win the North again, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's really any question about that. With Aaron Rodgers in that lineup, there's no question they're going to win this division. But I will tell you one thing. It's going to be a lot closer than it was last year because the Minnesota Vikings last year, don't know if they're going to be great, but last year was a fluke. They're not going to be as bad as they started. They're going to get back on a better foot. Justin Jefferson, second year. They still have Adam Thielen. Obviously, Dalvin Cook is there. Kirk Cousins is going to be better. I hope he's going to be better because as much as I make fun of him for not being able to win primetime games, as he is the most mediocre quarterback in the NFL, he is a good quarterback. He has the ability to do it. He has the weapons there to be able to succeed, and he's shown that he can do it before. And I think he's going to do it. They'll come in second in the division behind the Packers. I think they're probably going to have 9-10 wins, something around there. They could possibly reach a plateau of 11. That's my plateau. I have them at 10. Their plateau is 11.
Interesting.
It's all going to come down to Kirk Cousins' play.
Yeah, and Kirk Cousins definitely is going to have a spotlight on him. I don't know if you saw the Panthers Confidential that came out, just their YouTube video of what, they collected during, the draft weekend. But the first night of the NFL draft, Minnesota did call Carolina for the number 8 overall pick for Justin Fields. But ultimately, Carolina didn't like the return package put together and didn't make the trade, and as we all know, selected J.C. Horn out of South Carolina. But then Minnesota, later in the draft, went and got Kellen Mond. So, didn't get Justin Fields, but still ended up drafting a quarterback, and that's going to put a lot of pressure, in my opinion, on Kirk Cousins this year. Just those two factors of, well, we wanted this guy and still settled for this guy. Kellen Mond, arguably the best one out of that second-tier group of quarterbacks that was, outside of the first round of the NFL draft. But with the Green Bay Packers, last year, top seed in the NFC. This year, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, they look like potentially a better team. Bakhtiari's, all of these scouts right now and reporters at Packers camp saying that Bakhtiari looks like a, running stallion. I mean, the guy's back to running down the sideline, not fully obviously back to practice yet, coming off a torn ACL he had on New Year's Eve. But Bakhtiari, he might suit back up as early as week 1, which would be huge to have him back on the offensive line. And, the offense looks to be pretty much the same. We're returning a lot of guys, at the wide receiver position. We're bringing in Devin Funchess, bringing in Amari Rogers that we just drafted. And really the only thing we lost on the offense was pretty much Jamal Williams. But we'll get a heavy dose of, Quadzilla and the Quadfather in A.J. Dillon. So I'm excited to see him get a full season workload behind Aaron Jones. So we're with the consensus, and we'll pull up here the divisional rankings. So consensus on the Packers winning the NFC North, correct?
Yes.
And record-wise, I think we had a consensus too, right? 12-5?
12-5, yep.
12-5 for the Packers. All right, so we'll put that in here. Packers 12-5. All right, and then here, so second in the NFC North, I had Minnesota, and obviously you had them as well. But you're leaning more towards potentially a double-digit season.
Yeah, I double checked again. I've got 9-8. I have the plateau of 10.
Okay.
The record is 9-8 for them.
Okay. So I had 7-10. I'm not high on the Vikings as you are. I don't think that defense is there quite yet. I still think they're pretty young and, suffering. It happens the last 2 years that they suffer yet another big injury on defense. I think that could set them back. I also think Mike Zimmer could be potentially on a little bit of a, warming up seat. Not necessarily a hot seat this year, but definitely warming up, in my opinion. And Kirk Cousins, we know what he does under pressure. And, in those primetime games, he has a whole season, like I said, to be under pressure. But you said 9 wins. I said 7 wins. You just want to agree to disagree in the middle ground and say an 8-9 season for Minnesota?
Yeah. Sounds good for me.
All right, so Vikings we got here coming in. Well, having a little issue. There we go. Vikings 8-9 coming in at second. So I think this is an obvious one for third place in the NFC North. It's got to be the Chicago Bears. Definitely not going to be the Detroit Lions. How do you think the Bears season is going to go, Matt?
It's definitely interesting because obviously when the Bears signed Andy Dalton, they told him he's going to be the starting quarterback week 1. And there's a lot of skepticism because we see Justin Fields go out and show out in preseason and rookie camp. He could possibly win that starting job. Now, for argument's sake, and when I was going over this, I took Andy Dalton as the starting quarterback, and I have them losing their first 3 games of the season. But week 4, because of that, Justin Fields comes off the bench and starts week 4, and that's when they start winning. I have them going 6-11. I think that's a little on the high side there, but I do believe that they can get to that number if Justin Fields does turn out to be the steal of the draft with that pick.
I mean, I got to agree with you. I see the same thing. First 3 weeks of the season, they are at the Rams, home against Cincinnati, and then at the Browns until they finally get a home game against Detroit. So I agree with you. I think first 3 games they drop with Andy Dalton, and then week 4, I think Justin Fields officially gets the reins against a terrible Detroit team at home. That'd just be a perfect game to finally have him
perfect place to start.
Yeah, I think that's just the perfect scenario for Fields to come in and take over. And then, so I see them winning a lot more games toward the tail end of the season. They got Minnesota, Seattle, Giants, and then Minnesota to end the season. I have them going 3-4 in those final 4 games. So I see 7-10.
Okay.
In a potential here for the Chicago Bears.
I like that because they have the tools. They've got one of the best defenses in the NFL. They've got a great offensive weapon in Allen Robinson, obviously, and some good secondary options like Darnell Mooney. if Justin Fields turns out to be the guy that people think he could be, there's no question that they can reach that level.
Okay, so finally, here we got the Detroit Lions, obviously last in the NFC North, potentially being one of the worst teams in the entire National Football League this season, in my opinion. And it's going to be a tough stretch. I mean, I got, 7 straight games. I have them losing the first 7 games of the season before they finally get a win against the Eagles. It's just how I projected it. I got the schedule here right next to me. It's going to be a tough season for Jared Goff and especially, Dan Campbell in his first year as a head coach.
Yeah, there's no question about it. The Lions are going to have another tough year, and it gets worse because this time they don't have Matthew Stafford to bail them out. Now, I feel bad for Jared Goff. I really do, because he's gone from Sean McVay and the Rams to the Lions in Detroit.
Yeah.
Don't really have anybody. It's very sad. Brashad Perryman is their number 1 receiver right now. And trust me, as a Jets fan, I know what that's like. I've had to deal with that last season. But no, it's going to be a tough season for them. I have the same thing, them getting their first win at Philadelphia. I have them finishing at 3-14.
Yep.
I think they will get a couple wins in there. Jared Goff, I'm hoping Jared Goff does something because, his career's over once he's in Detroit, but I would like him to do something just to kind of prove that he still had something in the tank because he was the number 1 overall draft pick. He had the potential. He just didn't pan out, and just very disappointing.
So, yeah, I had the same thing. Just 3-14. They got some games late that I had. Just Denver, Atlanta, 2 games. I think that, potentially can get something put together. And that one of those 2 games will be a game where Dan Campbell just comes out and just lights up a press conference and is just, ecstatic and, hyped up as always. I mean, we've seen what he is already, before playing a game. I can't wait to see Dan Campbell after a win during a dreaded season. So that's our NFC North, Matt. Now let's go to the flip side in AFC North. It's going to be a tight division, especially if Joe Burrow comes back with Cincinnati and lights out the NFL next year, which could be possible. Offensive line still, in my opinion, is not completely revamped for a Joe Burrow breakout this soon. But this division, the Pittsburgh Steelers still kind of can be in the mix. Just see what happens with that team. But they brought back all the pieces they need. It's just all really lies on Ben Roethlisberger. And then obviously the Ravens and my Browns sitting up at the top. So, Matt, this is going to be a controversial one, and I'm going to agree with you on it if, we're both in agreement here. Who do you got taking home the AFC North?
I got the Browns taking home the AFC North right now.
The big Browns win the division. Yes, sir.
The only thing that could possibly change that decision is if Julio were to go to Baltimore. That is the only thing. And even then, I would still probably take the Browns over them. I just think they have a better overall team than the Ravens do. And I still have faith in Baker, my boy. He's going to get it done. He had his best season last year. Let's top it this year. No, I love the Browns team. They had one of the best draft classes this year on top of that. They filled all of their needs really in free agency. The one questionable move really was Jadeveon Clowney. That's the one thing there. I was just kind of like, add an extra edge rusher. I get that. Maybe he can revive his career. We'll see.
I mean, if adding a former number 1 overall pick is the most questionable move you made in the offseason.
Exactly. So I definitely have them going up top. I got them going 13-4. Strong season for them. And I got the Ravens just behind them at 12-5.
Wow. Okay. So
I got them going.
So I definitely agree with you on Browns winning the division in a very tight race with the Baltimore Ravens. Just Cleveland, I think, all around is going to get much better offensively and defensively. I mean, defensively, they're going to be stacked. I mean, I think they're stacked on both sides of the ball. They have one of the most stacked rosters, I think, in the entire league. But defensively, with Joke at linebacker, Jadeveon Clowney and Takk McKinley coming in off the edge with Myles Garrett. You got Greedy Williams coming back at corner. You also drafted Greg Newsome at corner with Denzel Ward at corner. I mean, that's not even talking about the safeties, but the Browns defense looks scary enough and formidable enough for an NFC North style of defense, but just the offense. The return of Odell Beckham Jr., hopefully get him healthy back for a full season. You get Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt back in the backfield. You also could add in Demetric Felton in the backfield. Yep. You can put him at receiver.
That could be a steal right there in the draft.
He could be a steal, just a multi-purpose weapon for him. And Anthony Schwartz out of Auburn, the wide receiver they drafted, could be one of the fastest players in the league. Put him in, on a couple plays, especially, some heavy passing down plays. Put him in instead of a David Njoku to stretch the field with Odell. It's going to be hard, really, to guard all these guys that they now have for Kevin Stefanski in that offense to work and start implementing the RPOs, start implementing the play actions. It's going to be a tough offense.
You didn't even talk about the running backs. You didn't even mention Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt there. Best running back duo in the league.
Exactly. So it's going to be on Baker to make it work with all these weapons. Last year, we really saw him turn it on toward the end of the season and make that playoff push last year. But see if he can really put it together first part of the season, second part of the season, and playoffs this year.
Yep.
That's going to be exciting to see as for all the Cleveland Browns fans out there. So you said 13 wins for the Browns. I had them sitting at 11-6, winning the division. So we'll go with the in-between there for the Browns and give them 12-5. If you're okay with that.
Yeah, works for me.
And then Ravens will have, like we said, right behind them. And, we just want to give them 10-7 or 11-6. Which do you feel?
Let's go 10-6.
10-6, yeah.
Or 10-7.
Oh, yeah, 10-7. 10-7, you're right.
17 games.
17-game season.
Gotta remember that.
So, but yeah, I think even, that's the safe pick. Even if they don't get Julio, they're still going to be in that double-digit range. Got Rashad Bateman coming in on the offense. And just Lamar Jackson's Lamar Jackson. We'll see if he keeps turning it on next year and has another phenomenal year, even like he did in 2019, winning MVP. And I'm excited for J.K. Dobbins as well. He's a guy that's, not talked about enough for what he did last year. And I'm ready to see him, go up a next level and, start pushing that narrative a little bit more of that running game outside of just Lamar Jackson within that offense.
Yeah, there's no question about it. J.K. Dobbins is going to have to take another step because at some point, the league is, no matter how good of an athlete Lamar Jackson is, the league is going to figure out how to stop him at some point on the running game. And if you can add that extra tier in there with J.K. Dobbins, if he can start to dominate, if they can open up holes for him, that's going to open up so much more for this offense, especially with how they performed on the passing side of the game last year. It was not great, especially at the beginning of the season. If J.K. Dobbins can start getting going early, that'll open up, especially for guys like Rashad Bateman, because Rashad Bateman is going to be key, especially if they don't get Julio, because Hollywood Brown is just not a number one receiving option. He's not. Rashad Bateman's going to have to step up big his rookie year and take a big role early if they want to really get and try to compete for this division.
Yep, 100%. So outside the Browns and Ravens, Matt, who comes in right behind them in the 3 spot?
I got the Steelers coming in at 3. I've got them at 7 and 10. They're just not going to be as good. They got Big Ben as quarterback this year again. Not really their smartest move, in my opinion, especially with the amount of talented quarterbacks in this draft. I think this would have been the year. It was either going to be this year or last year. The last 2 years have had extremely talented quarterbacks coming out, and it's been very deep. Next year, it's really only the top of the draft class that's going to be big for the quarterback position, and it's still not really going to be close to the level of the last 2 draft classes. So I think it could be a big mistake if he does not play like his old self, because they've got all the tools they need to win right now.
Yeah, and the really only scenario that you can think of for the future of the Steelers is that Dwayne Haskins is going to be their franchise quarterback looking long term, and that's sad in itself to even think about if you're a Steelers fan. So I think this is the year they start taking the growing pains and the steps backwards. Definitely not going to see an 11-0 start to the season like we saw last year out of Pittsburgh. So Cincinnati Bengals, I have them too coming in fourth again in the AFC North. But record wise, I have them at 7-10. I do think they make a little bit more of a leap with Joe Burrow, but I think they fall behind just because of their divisional record against these other three teams. I have them the same record as the Steelers, but end up getting fourth. What do you have projected for the Bengals record?
See, I still am not high on the Bengals. I don't think they did enough. They didn't do enough to protect Burrow, obviously. And on the defensive side of the ball, they made some additions, but they're still not great. I have them going 5-12, definitely on the lower side. I could see them getting up to that 6-7 win mark, but for me, everything has to go right for that to happen. Joe Burrow is going to have to stay healthy. He's going to have a much better season than he did last season, because even when he was healthy, obviously he didn't have the same weapons as LSU. He didn't have the protection, but he didn't play great as well. So Joe Burrow is going to have to take a big step. The offensive line is going to have to protect him, and the defense is going to have to make stops, because otherwise I see them coming down. Obviously fourth in the division, but I could see them going 4 or 5 wins.
All right, so we'll again meet in the middle here at 6-11. I think Burrow, they got a pretty decent schedule. I think he can put it together, against an Andy Dalton Chicago Bears in week 2. He's got the Jets, got Detroit.
Whoa, calm down with the Jets there.
I'm just saying, I can see it. A growing pain game potentially in week 14 against the 49ers, potentially a Trey Lance game. I can see that as a growing pain game for Trey Lance, and they dropped that one. And then, of course, week 18 against the Browns. It's a week 18 game, last game of the season. Browns may have potentially clinched the division by that point, so they could rest everybody, and I can see the Bengals squeaking one out there. So we'll meet at 6-11. Definitely not a good year again. Zach Taylor could be on the hot seat after this one with another bun season again and top draft pick for what would be the 3rd year in a row for Cincinnati. So now let's switch to the NFC West. In my opinion, still going to be the best division in football. Looking at my projections, I have every team finishing 3-3 in the division. They, a complete split all the way around for these 4 teams. Just equal amounts of wins, equal amounts of losses against each other. But Matthew Stafford and the Rams, it's too good to pass up. So I do think, and I think you agree, that they win their division.
Yep, I am pulling for Matthew Stafford. He was my first ever football jersey. I loved him. I don't know why I got a Lions jersey. That was probably my first mistake. But Matthew Stafford, I'm really happy he's finally on a good team. He's hopefully, I think he's going to be the MVP conversation, really. With that offense, he has the ability to do that. But for me, I have all 4 teams in this division going over 500. So it's going to be tight. The Rams are still going to come out on top. I have them at 13-4, winning the division. But I've got all the other teams are extremely close, 10-7 with the Niners, Cardinals 9-8, and Seahawks 9-8.
Okay, so you got Rams 13-4. I got Rams 12-5, and because of the division, I have them actually behind the Packers. So I'm gonna leave this one up to you here, Matt. Which one do you think?
Hold on, I got to think about this. I like the Rams, but I'm going to give you the Packers because I have faith in A-Rod. I have faith in him. I have faith in A-Rod.
So go 12-5 with the Rams, but because of the division record, end up getting the I'm going to say 3 seed, but we'll get to that when we get there. But right behind the Packers in the NFC conference. So who do you have behind them? Because this is where it's going to get interesting with this side of a division. I have the 49ers.
Yep. I've got the 49ers as well.
Okay.
And obviously, it's going to be interesting with their QB situation, what's going to happen. Because if they do end up going to Trey Lance at some point in the season, he is going to have growing pains. He is. And you mentioned that, with the Cincinnati Bengals, when you're talking that could be a game they could possibly get. Late in the season, they could possibly start dropping a couple more games if that happens. So right now, as I said, I have them finishing at 10-7, coming in second. I think they're going to have another good season, make the playoffs. The top team because they're getting a lot of their players back. They're still going to have one of the best offenses and obviously a top 5 defense in the NFL. One of the best pass rushes, no question about it. Second place in the division.
Okay. I had 9-8, but I can see definitely a 10-7, especially if, beginning of the year, Jimmy Garoppolo comes out hot, but then, tails down, loses a couple straight, and then Trey Lance comes in, and Trey Lance comes in hot. Definitely could see a double-digit win season. Yep. So who do you got on the tail end? I have Seattle. But do you have Seattle or Arizona at 3?
I have Arizona at 3. I don't know. The end of the season for Russ last year, I didn't get it. And obviously it's going to change because there's a lot of things that can happen. Julio could come to Seattle. Never know. But I think Kyler, as much, Baker Mayfield is still better than Kyler Murray. I'm going to stick to that. But I think Kyler's going to have a big year. He's going to come back. He's obviously got Nuke. He added A.J. Green to that mix as well. I'm hoping James Conner has a bounce back year in the backfield there. I think they're going to be strong. And I think they're going to come out on top. It's going to be very close. I have them finishing with the same record. But I think the Cardinals do get that third spot.
Okay, so you got them at 9-8?
Yep.
9-8 for the Cardinals. Okay, I can definitely see Seattle regressing next year.
Yeah.
Especially, you talk about the, second half of the season burnout that team had. I could see that continuing this year and the frustrations just returning and continuing for Russell Wilson. And the Cardinals, they had a lot, adding J.J. Watt to the mix now, and Cardinals were on the, right there with the final 2 weeks of the season, lost out in the playoffs. So I could see them, putting things a little bit more into shape for them this year, but definitely will be close with Seattle. So you want to say same record with Seattle, just finishing right behind them?
Yeah.
Right,
that's what I have.
So Seahawks 9-8 as well. All right, so now AFC West. I'll go ahead and put this one in here for us. Yeah. Kansas City Chiefs. They're gonna win it.
There's no question about it. They're the best team in the NFL.
Yeah.
They've got Patrick Mahomes. They've got Travis Kelce. They've got Tyreek Hill. They have the complete package, and no one's been able to stop them except the Bucs. But no, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to continue to dominate. They're going to win the division. I have them at 16-1. I think they're going to have a huge season once again. Obviously, that is a very high mark. But they don't have a strong schedule. Their 2 toughest games, in my opinion, are the first 2 weeks of the season. Browns and Ravens. I have them losing week 1 to the Browns and then winning 16 straight games. Now, the other games, obviously, Buffalo week 5, that could be difficult. Tennessee, if they end up getting Julio Jones this offseason, I don't know if they can win that game, but that's going to be more competitive than what I have at right now. There's obviously room for them to lose. But right now, I just don't see it.
All right, so I'm gonna go with a 15-2 here, just because you say Browns could be a loss in week 1, and then Ravens a tough game. I'm gonna say the Chargers sneak one out.
Okay. Against
the Chiefs. I mean, in his first game in the NFL last year, Justin Herbert thrown in because the starting quarterback was punctured in the lungs before kickoff. Justin Herbert took the Chiefs to overtime and came up just short of beating him. So full season under his belt now and no longer thrown into the fire. I could see Justin Herbert pulling one away from the Chiefs. And just that second loss, could be Buffalo in week 5. It could be Cleveland in week 1. Could be Green Bay in week 9. So I'm going to say 15-2 for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I assume the Chargers are number 2.
The Chargers taking a big step. I have them getting a winning record, 10-7, coming in strong. I think Justin Herbert, we saw him last year. He was just unbelievable. For a rookie, he's got the weapons that he needs. They made some improvements to the offensive line. They got a new head coach, which is huge. So I think Justin Herbert's going to take a real big step, and the Chargers are going to come out with a strong team, make the playoffs. I don't know how far they'll make it there, but they will have a shot.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are going to be one of my favorite teams in the entire National Football League next year. I can definitely see Mike Williams and Keenan Allen both going over 1,000 yards. I could see Austin Eckler, if he's fully healthy for a full season, I could see him going over 1,500, all-purpose yards, receiving and rushing. And that defense, with Brandon Staley coming in, with Joey Bosa, with that entire defense, you got, you kept Chris Harris Jr., you lost Casey Hayward, but kept Chris Harris Jr., drafted Asante Samuel, you're getting back Derwin James. Yep. All of that to work with who I think will be one of the top defensive masterminds in the NFL next year in Brandon Staley. I really love what the LA Chargers are putting together. And that offensive line is going to be a very good offensive line now that you add in Rashawn Slater in the first round, and you also add in Corey Linsley, one of the top centers in the league, adding them with Brian Bulaga. It's going to be a great offensive line for Justin Herbert, and I'm really excited to see this team take that next level next year. So at 3, I have the Denver Broncos at 7-10. I think Drew Lock finally has his year this year. Gets the full offseason, full OTAs. I think he beats out Teddy Bridgewater for the job. Once training camp starts, he's makes that next step. And just that offense and gets back on the same page. The defense stacked at corner, stacked in the secondary, bringing back Von Miller. I think there's a lot to like for this Denver Broncos team. So I got them at 7-10. Are you in the same agreement with Denver at least at 3?
Yeah, I agree. Denver 3. I had them at 6-11, but I like the 7-10 record. They're a young team. Drew Lock, I've loved him since before he was drafted. Great quarterback. He just needs time to grow, and people haven't been giving him that. They've got a young team. Look at their receiving corps. It's one of the youngest in the NFL. They're all starting wide receivers. Wow, that was tough. But no, they're a very young team. They need time to grow. They're going to get there, and I think this is the year that they're finally going to get there. Now, it could all change if Aaron Rodgers comes in. Then at that point, I've got them at like 10-7.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I have them at 3, 6-11, but I like the 7-10 mark as well.
Yeah, and you got Cortland Sutton coming back from injury. That's going to be huge in itself for Drew Lock in that passing offense. That's secondary. I mean, adding in Patrick Surtain in the first round, he's still going to be like the corner number 3 or number 4 to start on the depth chart in week 1. That is a very underrated unit in the entire National Football League. It's the cornerback position of the Denver Broncos. So this team's a lot deeper, I think, than people are giving them credit for. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams could be a sleeper running back duo together. So the Raiders, we got them last. And record-wise, what are you looking at for old John Gruden and the Vegas Raiders?
See, this is tough. Because for the Raiders, we saw them last year. They were up and down. I could have them anywhere from 5 wins to 8 wins. And right now, I have them at 6-11. They're just losing out to the Broncos based on divisional record there. It's going to depend on how it goes. They obviously got rid of a lot of their offensive line. They made the questionable decision to draft Alex Leatherwood in the first round, per usual, with Gruden making a questionable draft pick. But I don't know. Obviously, Derek Carr, he's going to be the same guy. He's going to put up decent numbers. They've got a decent receiving core. They still don't have that number 1 guy, though. They're going to have to rely on Darren Waller a lot once again. And that defense, it has improved. And that's going to be the key for them. They're going to have to score. The defense is going to have to keep the games low scoring. Because the offense, I just don't think it's good enough to be able to win games consistently.
Yeah, and I had the Raiders at 5-12. And this year is the make or break year for the Las Vegas Raiders. And just in general, because you look at the contract that they gave John Gruden, it's coming here now at the second half of that second half of that 10-year contract. And this is the point where he really needs to make something. He needs to at least make the playoffs with the Raiders And I think that they go 5-12, and this is the year that the ownership decides to tell John Gruden, uh, either do something with him, move on, or make him blow it up and rebuild and show something with this, final second half of his contract.
Yeah, the next offseason could be a big one for Vegas. A lot of players could be on the move because if this year doesn't work out, I there's if they go 5-12, there's not going to be enough improvements in the offseason next year to boost them up, especially with the Broncos on the way up, the Chargers on the way up, and the Chiefs all there. They're going to be stuck in the cellar, and if they don't do something quickly, so I think it's going to end up being a rebuild after this season.
Yeah, I'd have to. I mean, I think that's definitely going to be the case. So now let's go to the NFC South. And again, this one's going to be an easy one here, Matt. The defending champs have the best roster in football. There's no other way to describe it. Buccaneers take it home again with Tom Brady.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I have them going 15-2. So that's the same as what we have the Chiefs going. They brought everybody back. They're the Super Bowl champs. Tom Brady got hot in the second half of the season. He got used to his new team. He's going to bring that in this year and now start hot. There's no question about it. Buccaneers could challenge the Chiefs, the best team in the NFL. They got a better defense, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, I've got a rematch in the Super Bowl between the Bucs and the Chiefs. So
yeah, I'd definitely like to see that one get rematched with Kansas City with a rebuilt offensive line. So Tampa Bay, easily number one. Number two could be an interesting one, I think, in this division. I got the Saints, but what are you thinking?
I have the Saints as well, and the Saints were difficult for me because I really don't know what to expect. I was struggling. I had them anywhere between 7 and 10 wins really this season, depending on how it goes. I ended up going with the first. I have them going 7 and 10. I just don't think they're going to be able to pull it off. Drew Brees was that offense with Alvin Kamara. He was. Taysom Hill, if they start him at quarterback, they're not going to have a great passing game. They're going to rely on the running game. And if Jameis Winston starts and he doesn't come out throwing 20-plus touchdowns and hopefully doesn't have another 30-30 season, but they're just throwing it up in the air with the quarterback position. The most important position on the field. They're just kind of throwing it up there and hoping it hits. So obviously, if it works out, I see them getting 10 wins. If it doesn't, 7. They're going to be somewhere in the middle, but they are going to come in second in the division.
All right, so again, I'll meet you in the middle here. We'll do an 8-9 for the Saints. I see Jameis being the starting quarterback week 1 and holding on to that really throughout the rest of the season. I think this could be not really a break or, just a comeback year for Jameis Winston, but I definitely feel like he's not going to suck with the Saints. I feel like he's going to be a very serviceable quarterback. I wish, New Orleans had a bit more weapons on offense. Adam Troutman, I think, is going to do great as their tight end and will be the Rob Tunyon of this year's tight end group.
Yep.
The breakout tight end. Just, how O.J. Howard was, treated in Tampa Bay, and Jameis Winston loved him at the tight end position. I think Adam Troutman was groomed really to be that guy. It made sense with the Saints, cutting Jared Cook. And, Troutman looks to be like that guy to take the reins at tight end. And just, there's a lot of credit being taken away from the Saints with Drew Brees leaving. But I still think there's a lot of credit to be given to Sean Payton and see what he can do with this team without Drew Brees. Because, he went undefeated the last 2 years without Drew Brees, I believe. Maybe he may have lost, a game maybe with Taysom Hill last year. But I know he definitely went undefeated in 2019 without Drew Brees with Teddy Bridgewater. So I do think this team will be kind of in the thick of things this year. So number 3, do we got the Carolina Panthers? I
do. I have them in number 3. I have them with the same record as the Falcons, 6-11. I just think they're going to do better in the division. Again, I hate to say this. Sam Darnold's going to come out hot. He's gonna win week 1 against the Jets. I will be at that game. I will be there wearing my Sam Darnold Jets jersey. I will be there. if I've already made this bet, I told you about this. If Zach Wilson throws 3+ touchdowns and less than 2 interceptions, I will buy a Zach Wilson jersey right after the game. No questions asked. But no, I think Sam Darnold's going to have a huge step up. He's got a much better receiving core, much better offensive line. Uh, he's not going to be like a great quarterback, but I could see him throwing 20 to 25 touchdowns and less than 12 interceptions. So obviously, this is going to be more of like an in-between year. So he's going to kind of have like his sophomore season kind of thing, where he's improved, and then hopefully the next year he'll really take off because I think he does still have the potential to be a great quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I think I have Carolina going 7-10. I feel like that defense this year is going to be able to take that step and end up being a proven unit in the NFL. I mean, they're adding a lot of veterans now. With the young players they already had from last year. I mean, we all know entire draft class last year of all defensive players. This year, go right back to it and take J.C. Horn in the first round. Dante Action Jackson, the name that slipped my mind during our draft show, at corner as well. And just that entire defensive unit. Jeremy Chin, put him now at safety. Now that you have Hassan Reddick to play linebacker. Brian Burns and Derek Brown on the D-line. I think this team is going to be a lot better than people think they will, but I still have them in that kind of top of the mid ground there. So I have them 7-10. I think that's
I like that.
Yeah, I like that as a spot for Carolina. So last we got the Falcons, and like we said at the beginning, we're projecting Julio Jones is gone. So with that being the case, I think Atlanta ends up being a bottom team in the entire National Football League, and I have them going 3-14, and we got to switch this one here with Detroit. They are 3-14 as well, not 3-4, but 3-14. I think for Detroit, for the Atlanta Falcons. And are we in agreement with that one, Matt?
I like that. I had them going 5-12, or I think it was 5-12. Because obviously they're going to be losing Julio, but Kyle Pitts, he's going to be a weapon, and they've got their new offensive coordinator, new head coach, Arthur Smith, running that offense now. So I don't think they're going to go as low as 3 wins. I think we could probably meet in the middle there at 4 for this, in my opinion.
Okay.
But, it's not going to be fun for Falcons fans. I'll tell you that. And I think, in my opinion, 5 is like peak for next season. That is, if everything goes right, they get 5, maybe 6 wins. But no, it's not looking good for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, and even with Kyle Pitts coming in, hopefully potentially being that big guy, big target replacement for Julio Jones, I'm still skeptical of that defense. I still don't feel like they're fully all together. Losing their defensive coordinator, lost a defensive-minded head coach, and they're still terrible with that last year. Yep. Not really adding any of that back this year. I'm still skeptical of that Falcons defense and don't think they'll be able to put it together to even keep them in a lot of games next year. And without Julio Jones in that offense, I don't know if their offense will be able to win those games whenever their defense gives up a lot of points as well. But I like the consensus here, agreeing at 4-13 on the Falcons. So now AFC South, speed through it here. What are we looking at?
So I'll tell you right now, I've got the Texans at the bottom of the division, no question about it. I don't have them getting a win. 0-17, I think the only win they could possibly get is Week 17 if, for whatever reason, I don't even remember who they're playing Week 17. But the only possible chance that they have getting a win is if that team is in the playoffs and they're resting their players.
Yeah,
they just don't have it.
Yeah, I have them getting 1 win, so we'll go 1-16. I think they lose the final week of the season against Tennessee, but I have them winning against Jacksonville. I think they pull one out against Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. I could see just
Tyrod or Davis Mills.
No, I could see like an early Tyrod Taylor game. Not week 1, but Tyrod's still there. Week 15, which at that point is an early game. But I could definitely see them taking one out against Trevor Lawrence. That could be one of his down games of his rookie season. So I got them definitely in last, 1-16. So we got Jacksonville. I had them at 3. Do you agree?
Yeah, I had them at 3 as well. I have them getting 5-12.
Okay, so 5-12. I had 6-7. So meet in the
Okay.
middle. Go. Or excuse me, 7-10. Excuse me. So we'll go a 6-11 for Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, and Titans at second. We in
Yep.
agreement there?
Yep. I like that.
All right, so Titans here. I have them 9-8. I think that
I
there's
had
a
them at
little bit
8
of
and 9.
hiccups with the offense early on, without Arthur Smith. Not
Yep.
saying they don't get Julio Jones, weak wide receiver room. So I think there'll be growing pains of really getting that offense back on track, but they'll eventually get things together. Um, in my opinion, just a little bit too late when I look at my bracket. So go 9-8. So that means the Colts will take it with Carson Wentz, and I have 12-5 for the Colts and
Ooh.
Carson Wentz.
I've got them at 10-7. I think Carson Wentz is definitely going to take a step up from what he did last year. I just think it's going to take him some time because they don't have like the number one weapons at wide receiver. Um, actually, Julio could be an option. Don't know where he's going yet. But their defense is going to carry them. I think, in my opinion, Carson Wentz is going to have a better year, but I have them going 10 wins.
All right, we'll meet in the middle. Again, since I had 12-5, Carson Wentz and the Colts. I think again Carson Wentz has that comeback year that he needs to back with Frank Wright. So now NFC Beast Laguzza, my favorite division in football. I have the Washington football team winning yet again in the NFC Beast.
I got them boys coming out on top.
Oh my goodness.
I got Dak Prescott winning comeback player of the year, coming back 30 plus touchdowns, less than 12 interceptions. The defense is a question mark, which is why I only have them at 9-8. I have the football team also at 9-8. They're just Cowboys are going to do better in the division, in my opinion. See what happens, but it's going to be close.
All right, we got to come to some kind of consensus here, Laguzza. I'm leaning Washington football team, and I'll make the case here. One
Okay.
of the top defenses, I think a top 3 defense next year. Jamin Davis has a real shot to win Defensive Rookie of the Year behind that stud defensive line. They improved their secondary, bringing in Will Jackson. The third, Landon Collins coming back for that secondary as well. And offensively, that's their moneymaker that is improving this season. Ryan Fitzpatrick, when he is a full-time starter, this guy is the Benjamin Button of the National Football League. He just gets better with age, and this is the best cast I think Ryan Fitzpatrick will ever have. Antonio Gibson, my guy Gibby at running back, Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel, and Adam Humphries at wide receiver. And I mean, it gets deeper than that. And
Whoa, whoa,
Logan
whoa.
Thomas
What about
is
his
an underrated tight
Jets
end
with
as well.
Eric Decker, Brandon Marshall? Come on. That 10-6 team.
I think we see a 10-7 Washington
Okay.
football team.
Since it's your show, I'll let you have the number one spot.
All right.
Take it away. Football team number one.
Washington will go a 10-7. And then we'll go Cowboys 2. And you said 9-8, correct?
Yeah.
All right, I like that one. I had Cowboys 10-7. But we'll go, Cowboys 9-8. Still could be up there, buying for a playoff spot. Number 3, I had the New York Giants. I think they take a leap this year. I think the offense with Daniel Jones takes enough of a leap to keep Daniel Jones on the team going forward. Maybe he gets a 5th-year option. But Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, John Ross coming in at wide receiver, and Saquon Barkley coming back at running back. So record-wise, what are you seeing here from the New York Giants?
I've been going 8-9. I think they're going to make a big jump. They've got one of the most underrated defenses in the NFL. They just signed Leonard Williams long-term, so they got their edge rusher there. Got a stacked receiving room. Evan Ingram's going to obviously have to have a bounce-back year because last year was just not it. You got Kyle Rudolph in there to bring some stability to the position a little bit, but Daniel Jones is really going to have a comeback year. It's not going to be anything special, don't get me wrong. But, he'll have a good enough season for the Giants to get 8 wins, 7, 8 wins, somewhere in that range. Um, and hopefully at least keep his job for at least the near future.
All right, so number 4, we got bringing it in, the Philadelphia Eagles. And with the Eagles, me and Brad Clear, who's been a guest on the show before, we have a running theory and bet that at the end of the year, the Eagles will be trading their 3 first-round picks in next year's draft for Deshaun Watson. So we both think that they're going to have a down year. We both think that Jalen Hurts just doesn't show enough to be that guy for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think we both think that they keep him on board, but they just bring in Deshaun Watson to really be their guy. So Eagles, I had going 5-12 next season.
I had them going 5-12 as well.
Finally, we reached an agreement, Guzza.
We have. And I think Jalen Hurts could be a good quarterback in the NFL. It's just the team's not good enough in total to win games. Defense is solid. I'm not going to lie. The secondary is a little questionable, but the defensive line is not bad. They don't really have anything at the linebacking position. And obviously, other than Devonta Smith at receiver, they don't have much. So Jalen Hurts, he's going to do the best he can, but 5 wins is pretty much the max.
I will say, though, I am excited about Dallas Goedert. If the Eagles finally get a package deal together that ships Zach Ertz out to a new team, the Buffalo Bills, but hopefully, they already opened up contract extension talks with Dallas Goedert. He's finally got full reins to be, the tight end of this offense. And I really love tight ends with terrible wide receiver rooms. Darren Waller with the Raiders, TJ Hawkinson with the Lions, and Dallas Goedert with the Eagles. I think those 3 guys will have monster years this year and probably end up all 3 guys being in the top 5 tight ends in football potentially next season. So that's all I got to say about the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think they have a very good season upcoming. Nick Sirianni, I think, was the most questionable hire of the entire cycle this year, outside of obviously David Culley.
I was going to say,
Yeah, David Culley with Houston Texans is stupid. But Nick Sirianni is right behind him, in my opinion. So last but not least, Matt, and we'll start wrapping it up here, the AFC East, another interesting one. This one could be a 3-way race, depending on the Buffalo Bills. But I have the Bills running away with it yet again, and I have them winning the division at 14-3 for Josh Allen and the Bills. I think Josh Allen has an MVP-type season again next year.
I have the same thing, 14-3. They're going to run away with it. They're going to dominate the division as well. I think they'll probably only lose maybe 2 games. I think one of the Dolphins and one of the Patriots. I think that's pretty much how that's going to go for them. But no, Josh Allen, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Stephon Diggs really making a name for himself last year. Really catapulting himself into, no question, top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. They've got a great team, great defense. They added some big edge rushers in the draft early. So I'm expecting big things from them.
All right, so number 2, and this is where I think things get interesting here, because we could have Bill Belichick and the Patriots, or we have Brian Flores and the Miami Dolphins. And maybe looking at that face, Matt, what are we feeling here?
Miami Dolphins.
Dolphins.
I can't put the Patriots up there yet. With Cam Newton as their starting quarterback, I just can't do it. So I've got the Dolphins at 10-7. I think they're going to have another good year, and they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot once again. It's going to be interesting to see if they actually squeak it out this year. But I think Tua's going to have a big step up. Again, nothing special. But he's going to have a step up. He's got a good receiving core, adding Will Fuller to that, and Jalen Waddle is going to rekindle that connection there. Great defense. They've made some great moves. And I think they're going to take a step up and possibly squeak into a wild card spot.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Tua. I mean, you heard what he said about last year. He wasn't comfortable with the playbook, and he said this year he's much more comfortable with it. I think we see a different Tua Tagovailoa this year and a more confident one within this offense and that defense. Brian Flores will get that unit to being one of the best in football again, top 6 defense like it was last year. And just division wise, like you said, if they squeak one out against the Bills, they got the Jets. That being said, but
Yeah.
definitely that Miami has a chance this year to, like you said, go another 10-win season. But I think this year, the way things will shake out in the AFC and the way it's looking at right now on the rest of our board, it will be enough to squeak into the playoffs this year. And the Patriots, I have them right behind them at 9-8. But like you said, just it's not going to be enough with Cam Newton this year. And next year, I think, could be the year the Patriots get back into the playoffs with Mac Jones. I think Cam Newton starts, maybe 9-10 games, and then Mac Jones comes in. I just don't see Bill Belichick being that confident in Mac Jones early on in the season. And he is the rookie quarterback we see come in last, in my opinion, with Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and then Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones ends up coming in just a little bit later than the other two do. So this year, I have a 9-8 record for the New England Patriots. And just that team overall with the offseason they had, it's looking a lot better than last year. I believe, they finished at, I think, 7 wins, maybe 8 wins. So I have them, just one step above going 9-8.
Yeah, I have them going 8-9. 9-8 is also comfortable there. It's really going to depend on how Cam Newton plays, because obviously their defense has been much improved from last year. Big signings there. Offensive side of the ball, I just don't see enough. I don't see enough. Kendrick Bourne, a wide receiving signing, there were better options, and I think they could have done more to help Cam Newton, because as we saw last year, he didn't do much. And even when Mac Jones comes in, you haven't improved it enough. So Julio Jones could be a huge acquisition for them if that were to happen. But I have them going 8-9 this season. And then there's the Jets. My Jets. I have them going 6-11 at the best. And for me, you were talking about this earlier, I got Chris Herndon being the breakout tight end at the position this year. I think he could make that step. I think he could. He's got it. Trust me. I believe in him. When he's healthy.
I have been on that train before, Matt, the Chris Herndon train, and it came back and bit me right in the butt. So, but if you want to take that, dance with the bull, you can go ahead and take it.
I'm going to take it. When healthy, he was great. So if he can stay healthy, new quarterback with Zach Wilson, I think he's actually going to lean on him a lot this season, because he had a great relationship with Matt Bushman at BYU. So I think he's going to lean on Chris Herndon a lot, but it's going to be interesting. Defense just isn't there yet. Bless Austin is our number one cornerback. Bless Austin is going to guard Stephon Diggs. Bless Austin is going to cover Will Fuller. Yeah, I don't think so. So it's just the defense isn't good enough. Offensive line much improved. Still don't have a number one receiver, but improve that. Zach Wilson could be it. I like the running back room. Not good enough yet. And Chris Herndon, I don't know. He could be the breakout star. He could drop 50 passes. I don't know. That's just how the Jets are.
Yeah, and with the Jets, I had them. You had 6-11. I have 5-12. Just Zach Wilson. At BYU, we never saw the big games. The only big game we saw was that Coastal Carolina game, where they lost there, by a few inches, right there in the final, yards, where that game ended up coming down at. But you go into this year, and Zach Wilson with the New York Jets will start Week 1 against former Jets quarterback Sam Darnold, like we talked about with the Panthers. But you look at the season that Zach Wilson could have, and the big thing for me is he never had those big games in college and never played the big defenses in college. You look at him with the Jets, he's going to go against Bill Belichick, Sean McDermott, and Brian Flores. 3 of the top defensive coaches in the NFL for 6 of their games. So
you also got to remember, though, we got Rob Saleh running our defense. And do you think he won't be running a tough, decent defensive scheme in practice to prepare him for that? I know we don't have the same players, but I think having this coach here, I'm not saying it's going to pay off this year, but I think having a guy like Rob Saleh as our head coach is going to benefit Zach a lot. Going to learn a lot about defensive schemes from him. and I think it could help. We'll see.
I'm on there just like everyone else. Or I mean, I'm on there just as much as everyone else on the Bob Salah train. I love Bob Salah with the New York Jets. He was the guy to bring that energy to the Jets. And just the other thing, can he get that defense to that level that he's famous for? Because like you said, Les Austin at number one corner spot, that defense is not the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
And the pieces are not there that he had in San Francisco that he now has with the Jets. So what can he really do putting that unit together? So I don't know. I'm going to let you make the decision here. You're the Jets fan. So here to tail it out. Now, obviously, plan this very accordingly to end with the Jets. I'll let you take the reins and give us the record for the Jets.
So now, since I am a Jets fan, and since I am most likely very hopeful, I'm going to go with the smaller record, 5-11 or 5-12, for the actual one that we're going to put up on here, and it's just going to be a tough season. I've got one game circled on the calendar right now, and that's when we face Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson. I'm excited for that. Top 2 picks in the draft going at it. But no, as you said with the whole defense situation, we've got a defensive line in Marcus May. That's our defense. We don't have anybody really at the linebacking position. Neville Hewitt had a pretty good season last year, but considering the fact that Neville Hewitt is our number one. Oh, CJ Mosley's coming back. That's huge. Forgot about that. We'll see if he can continue. It's been like 2 years since he's actually played an NFL game, so that'll be interesting. But other than that, we don't have anything. So, more despair for me. I'm in misery.
All right, so looking at our board here, Matt, and I'm putting in, obviously, our division winners that we have. And now I'm going to start filling in our 3 wild card teams. So the 3 teams, pretty much just setting out the teams that will be in the playoffs.
Okay.
And AFC is the easy one. So Browns, actually we'll go in order. So Chiefs are the 1 seed, Bills are the 2, Browns are 3, and Colts are 4. And then we got 3 10-7 teams. We got the Ravens, Chargers, and Dolphins. That will all come down, obviously, to division rankings, strength of schedule, all the tiebreaker scenarios for those 3 teams. That'll be an interesting 3-way tie for those seedings, all at 10-7. And then in the AFC, the 1 seed Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we talked about Packers getting the 2 seed by division. Record, Rams 3 seed, Washington football team getting the 4 seed, winning the division. And then we got the 49ers, 10-7. They get the 5 seed, 6 seed, the Cowboys at 9-8. And now we have a tie here. A 3-way tie. Actually, no, we got the Cardinals at 9-8. So we're going to have Cardinals in the playoffs. So 3 teams actually coming out of the NFC West. And are you happy with how that's set up?
I'm happy with it. I think the scary thing is I could see, if everything goes right for them, I could see all 4 teams from the NFC West getting into the playoffs. They have the potential. If they come out and do this, if they tie at 3-3 in the division, and outside the division they all play well, I could see 3 wildcard teams coming from the NFC West.
And that could very much be well possible because they did all finish at 9-8, including the Cowboys. So those 3 teams, Cowboys, Cardinals, and Seahawks, that's going to be the decision, really, of how that turns out. So Seahawks or Cowboys, who would you have that final spot, we'll say?
See, I think it's going to be Cowboys. Mostly, the only thing that I'm concerned about is I don't think the Seahawks are going to finish 3-3 in the division. I think they're going to end up being worse.
Yeah.
I think they're going to lose to... I think they're going to lose both to the Rams. I think they're going to lose 1 to the 49ers, and I see them losing 1 to the Cardinals. And obviously, depending on how the season goes, they could lose more than that to the Cardinals and Niners. But I still don't like the Seahawks defense. I don't like Russ's turnover problems that he had late in the season. And the offensive line improved, but not enough. So it'll be interesting to see, but I don't have a lot of faith in the Seahawks making it down the stretch.
So, at my board, I actually had the Cowboys, the 49ers, and I had New Orleans at that 7th spot. But we came to the consensus with New Orleans. You know, they're there, but not quite with Jameis Winston and or Taysom Hill. So I kind of like this a lot better, having the Cardinals get in over the Saints based on, how I had it shaken up and how we have it here now. So I like it. I think it's a good board and a very reasonable and realistic board at that we put together for our divisional rankings. So as it plays out, you got Buccaneers and Chiefs?
Yep, Buccaneers and Chiefs.
I'd love to see my Packers in there, but I think it's going to be the Buccaneers.
It's possible. I'll tell you, it's possible. But it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
I could see the Browns and Bills getting in before I could see the Packers getting in, honestly.
I would love to see the Browns at least make it to the AFC Championship game and work out seeding-wise to where we have a Chiefs-Browns rematch head-to-head. That would be perfect in the AFC Championship game, and I would love if somehow that were to happen. So that's all we got, Matt. So thanks for joining the show and breaking down the upcoming NFL schedule with me. It's been a blast and always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Of course, love coming on, and you'll definitely be back on From the Bench at some point soon.
Yep, and go ahead and I'll give it a shout out. Check out From the Bench podcast and also blog with Matt Laguzza and his co-host as well. Just give some love to them as well. Check out their content as well. Matt, it's been a pleasure. Until next time, I'll see you later. All right, so that's all we got here on the Solve Sports Show. So thank you all for joining and watching. And if you missed out on any part of this and would like to catch up on it, we'll be posting it tomorrow, as always, on our podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Overcast, anywhere you get a podcast, you will find the Solve Sports Show. So I'll make sure that's posted tomorrow, around tomorrow morning. Make sure it's out on Twitter, and you can access it as well. So, again, thank you all for joining. That's all we got here on the NFL, divisional breakdown. And we'll give our Slaw's main card pick 'em of the week. We won't really get in depth of it, but we'll definitely make a pick of the week, at least on Twitter, if we got a UFC fight tomorrow night. Haven't dived into it really yet, so I'll make sure to do that tomorrow, if there even is one. I'm slacking on it. But I'm just loving some NFL stuff as of right now and loving having some guests on like I wanted to do. But that's all we have for this week. Thank you all for stopping by. And until next time,